Hello there, and welcome to another podcast hosted by me, Carol Swords. This is the podcast where we talk about all things to do with indie authorship, promotion and marketing of your work, and getting it out there so that it's being read. So, what are we looking at today? We're looking at reviews, folks. They're kind of, if you don't have any, you can just probably forget about selling any books. They're pretty key. They're pretty key to kind of developing credibility and trust with readers, particularly when you're first starting out and you're in your first or second book. I mean, you'll need them the whole way through, but you definitely need them for the first books, for sure. Okay, well, what's my experience of it been so far? Well, to date I have about 8 reviews on my short story collection, Bedtime Stories for Grown-Ups. And it's taken quite a bit in order to get those 8 reviews. It hasn't been like a walk in the park, it hasn't been a sort of 5-minute job. There's been a lot of work and time and effort put into getting those 8 reviews. And seeing as I'm trying to hit kind of like 100 reviews, it's just, it's going to take a lot more. But my feeling is that the first or second book are going to be the toughest, and that after that you'll have developed a bit of a following. Hopefully the hard work that you put in now will hopefully pay off a little later on. Of course, I'm not into that stage, I'm not into my 3rd or 4th book yet, but my feeling is that as you do the work now, it will reap you rewards later on. So let's go through kind of what I've done and see if it might help you. Well, the first thing I did was I went looking for places where readers congregate online, where the communities they're in, and in this case I found Goodreads to be a pretty decent start. Not so much for having found readers, like just straight up readers, not people who read and write, but just straight up readers. It's been tough, but of the 8 reviews I've got, maybe about 6 of them, maybe less, maybe 5, certainly half of them anyway, are from authors. What I did in 2 cases was I swapped the book with someone else, and I reviewed theirs and they reviewed mine. Now, there's issues with that. There's a certain, you might feel a certain amount of pressure to give a certain kind of view, but I just from the start said, look, I'm going to give an honest review. If you can take that and you can also give me an honest review in return, then I'd be willing and interested to find people. But for the most part, I was trying to start out without having to swap reviews, because there's still, no matter what, going to be a sort of pressure there. But it just so happened that the first 2 people that got in touch with me after I asked for reviews were authors, so I just kind of decided I'd take the leap and I'd see how it worked out. It worked out okay. I got mine reviewed. The person left me a review. It was about a paragraph long, 4 or 5 lines, and I in turn gave them a review, and I was as honest as possible. There was things to like about the book. I talked about those. There was things that I didn't like about the book, and I gave it my honest opinion or rating. I said I liked it, but I wasn't crazy for it. Next one I liked a bit more, and I said that. In terms of what I got myself, I got involved with a group that is for authors looking for reviews, but instead of reviewing the book of the person who's reviewing your book, you review someone else's, and the group is like sort of 10 people strong. You write 4 reviews, you get 4 back, and you get them over the course of a couple of weeks. Out of that, I've gotten, I think, 3 reviews so far, and I'm expecting 1 still. I also got reviews from people like at least 2 readers that I didn't have to read for them anything. And then I also sent it a download link to friends, and I asked them to review it. Now, the thing about friends is, they're often going to say they love it regardless of whether they do or not. I did ask again that they're honest, and I asked them to send it to friends of theirs so that there's less of a connection between me and them. Unfortunately, it hasn't really come to anything much so far. I got one review out of that effort, and I probably put a couple of hours into sending messages to friends because I wanted to personalize them, and I also wanted to say hello and catch up with them. So it probably hasn't worked out in terms of output and like reviews. It hasn't really worked out. So I'm thinking maybe I'm just going to do a mass email with friends this time and ask them to give a free copy to someone they know, because it will just take less time and it may probably have about the same results, and I don't want to spend too much more time doing that. Okay, so what other options is there? Well, I mean, you can just go to Amazon, look at the top reviewers. I mean, it's nothing new. A lot of people are going to say it. I guess the thing in that case is that it's not so much that you're going to find reviewers that are never being asked, but it's about creating a request that is both memorable and courteous, and you can't do anything about them not liking your type of genre. Like, if that's the case, then there's nothing much you can say to them. But if you do your homework and you target the right reviewers, and you know what they're into, and you know that they're accepting reviews, and you give them a polite, courteous and short request, that's going to do you a lot better than just sending one line saying, here's my book, will you review it, thanks. That's not going to happen. That's just not going to work. You might spend only sort of half or 1/4 of the time sending those, but I really don't see that working. I mean, I haven't reviewed much stuff yet. I've just reviewed a few authors, but I am someone who gets a lot of requests because I'm part of Couchsurfing, which is a sort of online hospitality website, a bit like Airbnb. And whenever I just get one line copy and paste stuff, it just doesn't tend to encourage me to get back in touch with them. And I think it's the same with something like this. If you're not going to send them something that you put a little effort into and you haven't personalized it a bit, then you might as well just be sending the email to yourself and leave it at that. So just write up a template and then use it, like several templates maybe, and then just use whichever is appropriate and personalize it a bit so that the reviewer understands that you've tried to take them into account and take their own interests into account. Also, make sure that you have the book in a format that they want. I mean, some will ask for physical copies, I'll get onto that in a second, but make sure that you are able to offer it as a PDF, as an EPUB file, and as a Mobi file for their Kindles or their other Amazon related devices. If you only have it in Word or in OpenOffice, then you need to download some software that allows you to transform the file into something else. And for that, I would recommend Calibre. We're going to talk about it in another stage, but this will allow you to change your DocX or your ODT OpenOffice file into Mobi, PDF, EPUB, and a range of other formats. Get that, because if you can't give it to them in the format that they want, you're making them have to work even more. Either they'll have to change it themselves, or else they'll just say, no, it's not worth it, man. I don't like to read on the computer. I prefer to read on my e-reader. If you can't give me that, then there's no point. So make it as easy for them as possible. There is people who will do reviews, but specifically request physical copies. If you have to go around spending sort of $12 to $15 on sending it, the only people you should be sending that to are like very substantial reviewers, people that have a track record, people who have been doing it a long time, people who will, because of their track record and their reputation and they're interested in maintaining it, will actually review the book. There's people out there I'm seeing who are asking for physical copies, but there's just not enough of a reputation behind them, I think, to justify sending them a physical copy. particularly if you're having to use a print-on-demand service. Now, if you get 500 copies of your book printed out and it ends up costing you about €1.50, $2 per book, then with a bit of postage, then there is reviewers that are worth spending that money on. Most definitely. But there's a lot of reviewers out there who you won't necessarily get much review out of. You might only get a couple of words, you might get a line or two, you might get it like 5 months after you send it. You have to, and I know you probably know this, but you've got to be sure that whoever you're sending it to is someone you can trust to give a decent review in a timely manner. If they don't have much of a track record, if they have very few books reviewed, if they don't seem to have a great web presence, if there's not a lot of people following what they're doing, then paying for the review or sending them a book just isn't worth it. And there is reviewers out there who will charge, and that's one thing. I don't know how, they'll say that they're going to do an honest review, and they might well do an honest review, but it just smacks of too much of a conflict of interest, or there's, you could spend €10 on a review, but unless you know that they're going to be getting it out to a lot of people, that they have a newsletter that a lot of people are subscribed to, it's just wasted money, and you don't have the money to waste, I think, at the moment, particularly if you're someone like me and you're on a budget. So pick your reviewers carefully. At least with a digital copy, you're not spending any money on postage, you're not having to print up something, and at least initially you should probably just go with people who are willing to take a digital copy, and keep your physical copies if you make any for people that are like big time reviewers. Okay folks, I've probably gone into more than enough detail, probably boring the pants off you. But that's just my thoughts. If you have any thoughts yourself about the podcast or any topics that we should cover in the future, please leave a comment in the section below. If you liked the podcast and you liked the series, please consider making a donation. There's a PayPal, there's Gumroad, there's Patreon. You can use any of those services, and any donation would be much appreciated. Also, if you have any audio projects that you're looking to get off the ground and you like the sound of my voice, then do get in touch. But other than that, folks, I wish you a very pleasant day. Take care of yourselves and each other. I've been Cruel Swords. I still am Cruel Swords. Goodbye.